Hello from here. We've just nearly completed a hike. We're in the wilderness of someplace just to the south of Peoria in Illinois, where we're staying for this week. We thought we'd record this short video just to give an update on something we haven't really gone into detail too much yet, which is the whole traveling and COVID situation that's happening over in Australia and how that's impacting us and our plans.
Earlier this week, I started to look into our flight options. We primarily fly United, and because of a family pass that I have, how we got from Heathrow to Chicago. And that option is basically pretty much non-existent to us, given the flight caps that Australia put in place in mid-July, just as we were starting this adventure. So that was pretty tough to see, and just looking into flights to Sydney, San Francisco to Sydney was kind of going to be our plan, but that has kind of gotten tossed up into the air, no pun intended, because we can't find a flight.
There were quite limiting caps when we left the UK, but the week that we arrived, those caps were halved, obviously, with the Delta variant. Situation growing in New South Wales and really only getting worse since then. So New South Wales, the entire state, is now in lockdown and probably will be for the rest of the next couple of months, I think. There is an announcement due on the flight caps at the end of August, but I don't think that's probably going to change the situation. So if we look on our United flight status, there are negative amounts of people waiting to get on each flight. And of course, in order for United to make that financially viable, the cost of getting a seat on one of those ranges somewhere between $5,000 or $6,000 to $14,000 US.
Oh yeah.
And seats on the United, the flights, direct flights from the States, we see some that pop up every now and then in sort of late September or early October, and they just disappear fairly quickly. Even if we did book one of these flights, I get the feeling that, we could be bumped or that flight might never leave. So that's a bit of a risk. And obviously we need to get COVID tests and everything before we fly. So just turning up to the airport and hoping is a bit of a stretch, I think, but we're keeping our options open.
So we had a pretty sad, rough few days determining what we were going to do. So from there, we decided to email our immigration agent.
At the moment, for an Australian partner visa, the sponsorship application sort of is bundled into one. But in November, that law is potentially going to change, as far as we can tell, and as far as we've been advised, which splits out that sponsorship application phase. So there would be a whole separate approval system for me to become a sponsor first before we even proceed to Sarah's application as a partner. Plan was to get into Australia and lodge our application onshore before November, before that law came in. So we had a bit more control over when our application went in and hopefully when it got approved. As Sarah said, it's difficult to get into Australia at the moment due to flight caps being halved and there being quite a backlog of people obviously trying to get into the country. We're not alone. There's probably lots of couples and families in a similar situation trying to get back to Australia. The other potential route, which is to submit our application offshore as opposed to onshore, which the material that we would need to submit in the application process is pretty much the same for either application. It just depends on where you submit it from, obviously. And because we can't get into Australia, our best option is to submit it from overseas. The agent advised us that partner visas offshore were being processed quite quickly, somewhere between 3 and 6 months potentially. So rather than just sitting around here or somewhere else waiting to get into Australia and lodge our application offshore, of course we'd have to go through the whole sponsorship application before that if we missed the November deadline. Our best bet seems to be at this stage to submit the offshore application as soon as we can. Hopefully when we can get into Australia, all that's done, she'll have automatic exemption as she already does to get into Australia. And once we do get in there, she'll have all the rights and everything as an Australian resident.
So that puts us in a place where we can't just stay in where we are currently in the United States, in my home country either. Marcus and I discussed kind of like what is a non-negotiable for us, and right now a non-negotiable for us is one of us flying across an ocean from the other person. So we have to work now to determine what our next step would be. If we do end up lodging the offshore visa, we have to go somewhere in the interim time while we wait for that visa to process. Right now, those options are either, looks most likely, the United Kingdom, because we just love the UK so much and we want to go back, and Canada. So those are kind of the two options we're tossing around right now. We do have one tiny little glistening speck of hope getting into Australia before October, before he would need to leave the US. And that is for a flight potentially into Melbourne, or showing up at the San Francisco airport, and maybe a flight there would have a couple seats of people that couldn't get on due to COVID tests or otherwise. This is an incredibly small likelihood. So I think for the most part, we're planning on the offshore and then having to find a new home country for the interim time, which is hopefully going to be the 3 to 6 months that our agent has semi-confidently given us as a time frame, but she can't guarantee anything, and we understand that. So yeah, those are kind of our two options that we're playing around with right now, and our life is basically in limbo. Yay! Just want to say a big thank you if you're one of the people involved with our visa process and you had to write a lovely form for us. You know who you are, and we appreciate you and your ability to get us that form ASAP. And yeah, I know that was a quick turnaround, and we appreciate everyone who has helped us on this journey in any way. So yeah, thank you.
We have a few more travel videos coming up that will be released soon as I get around to editing them. So yeah, we'll keep pumping these out, and yeah, it seems like it's going to be quite an adventure.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Goodbye.
Goodbye from here.
We're currently sitting in a... Well, I'm going to do it again.
Okay. What?
Where are we?
Sure.
Blah, 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 blah. And this is where you take over.
So...
And our graphics department comes back to me with some extra graphics.
Oh yeah, sure.
That was one business day.
I'm a bit behind. Well, it was a very tumultuous day,
Yes,
okay? Your graphics department had an emotional breakdown, so I'm very sorry. Yes. You want to go to Target? He does.
Silly question,
And
is that?
so do I.
I guess until we have to make a call in the next couple of weeks. Getting emotional.
I know. It's okay. We're going to be okay.